call. So first, welcome, welcome. I'm Katrina, and I'm so happy to see that we have people joining live because it makes it so much more enjoyable to know who exactly is watching. And we love, love, love when people interact and ask questions and share examples and comment. So please feel free. For the Zoom call, you can either, raise your hand if you have something that you want to add, or also, I love that Brooke and Abraham have both already used the chat box. You are welcome to pose questions or share comments in the comment box as well. So thank you so much for being here. So I'm Katrina, and I teach through Empowered Minds Club. And maybe since this is the first time and we do have other people on live, maybe we just take a moment for everyone to just introduce yourself, and maybe just take a moment to check in. If you want to share, anything that you're aware of how you're feeling, maybe an emotion, feel free to share that, or just share your name. So do we have a volunteer who would like to go and introduce yourself now?
Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron Weiner. I work with Wisdom House with David and Katrina here, and have been doing stuff at Lewis and Clark for 4 years now with mindfulness. And I don't know if you guys remember the mood meter, but I'm feeling a little bit tense and excited in the chest. This new format of Zoom is exciting. It's great to see everybody. And yeah, I'm noticing a little nervousness and excitement in my body.
Thank you for sharing. Who'd like to go next? All right, Abraham.
Hi, my name is Iker or Abraham. I'm feeling green, calm.
Awesome. So you said, which name do you prefer that we call you?
Iker.
Iker. Okay, and that's what I see in the chat box. Okay, so Iker. Okay, Iker. I will remember that. Thank you for sharing. Okay, who'd like to share next?
I'll go. My name is David Ahlquist, and I'm also with Wisdom House. And I'm feeling a lot the same way Aaron is. A little excitement. I can kind of feel it in my chest is a little tight. I feel like my blood's pumping a little fast because this is the first time I'm sort of managing a Zoom call. And while I'm taking this turn, I just want to see how we all are in working with Zoom. Do you all know how to raise your hand, like the emoji raise hand? Let's see that just for, all right, there's a thumbs up, cool. Clap. Maybe we don't have raise hand enabled. Is that possible? We'll look at that for next time. Does everybody know how to unmute themselves and mute themselves? All right.
I'm using the space bar.
Cool. Yeah, the space bar is a shortcut for that. That's nice. You might be on a different device, on a telephone or an iPad or something. So I see Brooke's unmuted. She's probably ready to share. Are you ready to share, Brooke?
Yeah.
All right, we'll let Brooke go.
My name is Brooke, and I feel calm too. So blue.
So Brooke, I can't hear you very well. It's a little bit muffled. I heard you say that your name was Brooke, but I didn't hear what you said after that.
I feel blue, calm.
Okay.
I think she said blue and calm.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Gosh, in mindfulness, no matter what we're mindful of, whether we deem it pleasant or unpleasant, every emotion and sensation we welcome in, and we can be mindful of it all. So thank you. Let's see. Francisco, would you like to introduce yourself? Yes, we have more people joining. Excellent. Welcome to everyone who's joining us. Thank you. So for those of you who have just joined us, we're just introducing ourselves and sharing where we are on the mood meter. So for anyone who has just joined us, if you would like to share, please unmute yourself or raise your hand, or just feel free to jump in and to share your name and where you are right now on the mood meter. So is there anyone else who'd like to introduce yourself? And if anyone needs, is having any like technical difficulties, especially with using the different functions like mute, unmute, or raise hand or thumbs up, if there's anything like that that you can't figure out and you want to say something, please feel free to use the comment box, and we will try our best to help you out, because we love it when people interact and answer questions and share comments and everything. So for those of you who just joined, is there anyone right now who has not yet introduced yourself and you would like to introduce yourself now?
Everybody knows me.
Yeah.
Everybody knows you. Would you like to share where you currently are on the mood meter?
Where I'm at on the mood meter.
Yeah.
In that middle dot, in that middle square, between the whole square in that middle. It's right direct in the middle. No, I'm fine. Yellow. I can't complain. I'm alive. I'm yellow. I'm alive. I can't complain.
Okay, thank you. How about Madeline or Francisco, or I see Tracy White's account, but you are not Tracy there. Would anybody else of you like to introduce yourself and share where you are on the mood meter?
Hi, I'm Lizette. Well, technically filling in for Miss White because she couldn't be here. I'm actually on the green. I don't know, relaxed, calm, chill.
Okay. Any last calls for either Francisco or Madeline? If you want to jump in and introduce yourself and share where you are on the mood meter. All right. Well, just please know at any time anyone is welcome to comment in the chat box. All right.
Madeline, can you hear? Madeline, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, it'd be nice to show your face.
Do you hear us, Francisco? Okay.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you all can hear. Well, welcome. So if you watched the video from last week, which was a YouTube recording, we introduced Empowered Minds Club, and we introduced mindfulness through an activity called Have You Ever? And we gave examples of things such as, have you ever been in class and the teacher calls on you and you realized you've been tuning out and you have no idea what's going on? Or have you ever said something that you regret? or done something that you regret? Or have you ever had trouble falling asleep because your mind is restless and you don't feel still, right? Like I said that for every single one of those things in that activity, have you ever, every single one of those things I could relate to. And then we gave examples of how mindfulness can support us in any of those situations. So, and we did a little bit of an introduction. Thanks for joining with your camera.
Thank you.
We gave a little introduction to what we call mindful body. So can I see a show of hands of who saw last week's video with the have you ever activity and the intro to mindful bodies? I know that Brooke had commented on that video, and Iker, I think, had commented on that video also. Great. So for those of you, I would love to know from the students, are you familiar with mindfulness? Just to know, should we introduce mindfulness and explain it a little bit more? Can you give me a thumbs up if you're familiar with what mindfulness is, or if you've even heard of it before? Thank you, Iker. Okay, thank you, Madeline. How about Brooke? Are you familiar with mindfulness or not so much? Okay, so. All right. All right, and thank you, Francisco, for the thumbs up. That's a helpful way to communicate. Okay, so we're going to be talking about our word of the day, autopilot. It would be helpful, I think, if we reviewed first, since some of us aren't super certain what mindfulness is, if we just kind of review a little bit about mindfulness. Is there any student who has an idea of what mindfulness is and you would like to share what you know already about mindfulness?
Try to call on some names.
Okay, let's see. Iker, do you have an idea of what mindfulness is?
You express your feelings, or I don't know.
Yeah, I like that you said feelings, emotions, because that's part of our definition. In mindfulness, we have awareness of our emotions or thoughts or any of our body sensations. Like when Aaron and David were just sharing and they were talking about feeling things like maybe a little bit of tightness in the chest, feeling a body sensation like that is part of mindfulness also. Thank you. Okay, so we said last time that mindfulness is paying attention on purpose to the present moment without judgment. So when we pay attention, we're paying attention to those things such as our emotions, our thoughts, and our sensations, right? No matter if we think they are pleasant or unpleasant. So that mindfulness is very, very helpful because it can provide us a space between an impulsive reaction, which sometimes is something we regret doing, and more of a skillful response. So today, we're going to continue working on that definition of paying attention on purpose or with intention, because that relates to our topic of autopilot. And with autopilot, first of all, has anybody ever heard that term, autopilot? Feel free to raise your hand or give a thumbs up. That term, autopilot. Okay, well, I'm going to give a few scenarios, and this can be a thing like have you ever game. If it's something you can relate to, go ahead and raise your hand or give a thumbs up, either with your body or you can do it digitally via Zoom, okay? So here's a few examples. Who has ever been reading a few paragraphs of a book, and then once you get to the end of the page, you realize that you have no idea what you just read? Yes, okay. Thank you for participating. Okay, so if you've ever had that experience, that's an example of going on autopilot. Okay, so we'll kind of see what these things have in common. Here's another scenario for a thumbs up or raising your hand. Who has ever been aware that they've been daydreaming in class, even if it's been a topic that you find interesting and you meant to pay attention? Okay, thank you for participating. That's another example of autopilot. Who has ever been distracted by a loud noise, maybe the loudspeaker in a classroom or a siren, and then all of a sudden after that noise, you have forgotten what you were doing or saying before that distraction? Thank you. And one more example. So who has ever been walking down the hallway, maybe at school, Lewis and Clark, and you arrive at your destination, maybe it's a classroom or your locker, and all of a sudden you realize that you don't even know how you got there. You don't remember walking down the entire length of the hallway. Yes. Yes, thank you for being honest and participating. That's an example of autopilot also. And for those of us who drive, like many adults have experienced, sometimes they're driving in a car and all of a sudden they arrive at home and they don't remember passing all these different landmarks or intersections. These are examples of being on autopilot. So when we say autopilot or automatic pilot, it means that we are doing things out of habit that we do all the time, but we're not using our conscious, our present moment experience, because a lot of times these autopilot activities are things that we do in a routine all the time. And so it doesn't always require our present moment experience like it would for something new. In autopilot, it can be useful. So for things that we do out of habit, such as tying your shoes or brushing your teeth, right? We don't always need to remember, how is it that I brush my teeth, or how is it that I tie my shoe? That's autopilot, those things we do out of habit. And so it can be useful for activities like that, but autopilot can also lead to trouble, because if we're experiencing strong emotions and those strong emotions put us in an autopilot habit of how we usually react, maybe a way we usually react when we're angry is with yelling or snapping at someone or storming off. Those autopilot responses might be things that we regret and things that we might not do if we had a chance to pause and reconsider. So does anybody have an example of maybe something that you've done that's on autopilot that you have done out of habit like that? That's an example of an autopilot activity. Besides those examples that we gave, like reading a whole page of a book and not knowing where we are, or maybe an autopilot strong emotion reaction. Anyone have an example? You know what? Sometimes when we talk about what something is, it's also helpful to give an example of what it's not. So we're going to talk about, and please feel free to raise your hand and share an example at any time. So we shared examples of autopilot activities. The opposite would be a purposeful activity, such as, let's say, an activity that you can get really into, Okay, so raise your hand if you have a hobby such as playing a sport or playing a musical instrument, or a hobby like maybe it's painting or something such as an art project where you've really experienced being super focused and into whatever it is that you're doing. Who has ever experienced that? Being in that zone of focus during an activity you enjoy. Cool, thank you. I'd love to know, what is your example of that purposeful activity? Let's see, Madeline, I saw your thumb up. What's your example of a purposeful activity?
Like, do you mean like the opposite of autopilot?
Exactly, like when where you feel like you're really in the zone, you're really in your present moment experience.
Maybe like when I'm copying notes or something.
Okay, so awesome. I'm gonna add these to our list. So we'll say copying notes. And it could be maybe any other type of school activity that you're doing. Thank you for the example. Brooke, do you have an example of a purposeful activity where you feel like you're really in the zone?
Even more. It keeps getting better.
Oh,
We're social. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Pinterest, and
I don't know, like, maybe, yeah, I don't know what activity.
Okay, do you have any activities that you enjoy, such as a sport or playing an instrument, or
Yeah.
activities such as drawing or playing a certain game?
Yeah,
What is it for you that you enjoy?
playing sports,
Playing sports, great. What sport?
basketball, softball, soccer.
Okay, so the first one I heard was basketball. So have you experienced that through basketball where you're really in your present moment experience? You feel like you're very aware of what's going on? Okay, great. I'm going to put that down. Playing basketball. Cool. Okay, Francisco, would you like to share either verbally or typing it in the chat box an example of a purposeful activity for you? Okay, playing video games, I see. Playing video games, I see in the chat box. Okay, so video games, so feeling really in the moment. Okay. And then let's see, Iker, do you have an example of a purposeful activity?
Playing a violin.
Playing what?
Violin.
Ooh, violin. Playing violin. Thank you. So what does it feel like when you're really in that present moment experience? What does it feel like? Like, is it a good, would you call it maybe pleasant or maybe call it unpleasant? Or what does it feel like when you're really doing a purposeful activity that you're really into? Okay, thank you. In the chat box, AC Francisco said it feels calm. Okay. I know for me, I like to oil paint. And when I'm really practicing mindfulness by doing a purposeful activity like oil painting, simple little tasks such as squeezing the paint from a tube and mixing it, and the strokes on a canvas, it just feels for me, it feels free, and it feels very pleasant because it means that I'm not worrying about something that happened in the past, and it means that I'm not experiencing anxiety over something that might happen in the future, it just feels really free. Would anybody else like to comment on what it feels like for you when you're experiencing a purposeful activity where you're really in the present moment?
Sometimes there's a lot of joy in that.
Yeah, for sure. I know for me, when it's painting, I do definitely feel that joy. All right. Well, we're going to do an exercise, and this is going to help us realize our present moment experience with sensations that we can feel with just one part of the body, which is the hand. So can you all right now raise your hand in front of your face and look at it carefully? And just look at your hand for any different lines or shapes or colors. And just notice what you see. And now, if it's comfortable for you, close your eyes with your hand still out. And then ask yourself this question, or see if you can answer this question to yourself. How do you know your hand is still there even though you can't see it? Okay, now feel free to open your eyes. And would anybody like to share if there was maybe a sensation in your hand or anything that you felt in your hand that helped you know that your hand is there even without seeing it? Here are some examples of sensations. Like right now in my apartment, it's a little bit stuffy. So I feel temperature, I feel warmth. So warmth or coolness, that might be a sensation. And so if any of these you can connect to, you can go ahead and give a thumbs up. So maybe it's temperature, or maybe it's a tingling, like if your hand falls asleep, or maybe it's a feeling like a throbbing, or maybe you feel the blood that's flowing through it. Okay, those are all examples of sensations. So now we're going to do a couple movements with the hand. So first, with one hand out in front of you, tap your palm of your hand with a finger from the other hand. And notice what sensations you feel. And now, using that finger on the palm of your other hand, go ahead and make some letters and write your name in the palm of your hand. Write your name or any other words you're thinking of. Form those letters on the palm of your hands. And as you're doing that, notice what kind of sensation you feel on your hand. Can you actually feel something in your hand? And now clap as fast as you can, like vigorously. And then stop. Can you feel a sensation in your hand? And then rub your hands together as fast as you can. And just notice what you feel in your hands. Or maybe you can also notice in other parts of your body too. As I was rubbing my hands, I could also feel it in my arms. Now, the next one, with your palm still open, use a fingernail and just lightly scratch. And instead of with your finger writing your name, you gently use a fingernail to write your name or another word in the palm of your hand. And notice if you feel even a different sensation as before. And then flip your hand over, and now on the back of the hand, do the same thing with the fingernail and see if it feels any different on the back of your hand compared to what it felt like inside in the palm of your hands. Awesome. So David said in the comments, he says, I could just barely feel my pulse. Great. Any other words that you would like to share of sensations that you were aware of during that hand exercise? You can either feel free to share it through speaking, or if you want to type it in the comment box, you're welcome to do that too. Or I'm going to share a few sensations I felt, and if you can relate to that or agree, you can just give a thumbs up. Did anybody feel heat? Yes, thank you. I felt heat. Yes, and Madeline said in the comment box, heat when we were rubbing our hands. Absolutely, that's where I felt the most heat. Did anybody feel any sort of a tingling sensation? Like I felt a little bit of that when just gently using my finger to write a letter. Okay, great. Did anybody feel any kind of an itch? Or a pulse? Excellent. So what you experienced just then as we were doing it, any of these sensations you were aware of, that's mindfulness. That's a purposeful activity, is bringing attention to what it feels like in your body. So, gosh, I see that we've already been at a half an hour now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the reflection questions that we have. And Mr. David has created a Google form with these reflection questions that you can fill out in the Google Classroom, and we would love to know your experience, how you respond to these questions, which are the first one: what sensations, if any, were you aware of during this hand exercise? So any of these things we talked about, like temperature, or tingling, or a pulse, those would be sensations. And then the question number 2 is, what are your examples of purposeful and autopilot activities? And then question number 3, just to think about how might it benefit you to be aware of when you have slipped into autopilot. So those are your reflection questions. We look forward to seeing your answer as you fill out those reflection questions in the Google form document. And please, if you have any questions after this video is over, please feel free to comment. I would be happy to answer those. Same with, I'm sure, Mr. David or Aaron. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Please at any time ask questions, or if you have ideas for things that you want us to talk about in a future video, we would be very happy to do that. So thank you for participating. It makes it so much easier to have actual people to teach to than for me to just talk to a blank screen and not know who's watching. So we appreciate you joining, and thank you for participating, whether it was with words you were speaking or words in the comment box or the thumbs up. Thank you so much, and we will see you next Monday. And also be aware that there might be other supplemental videos that you can find in Google Classrooms as well. Is there anything else, David, that you want to share regarding logistics or anything?
No, I think you covered it. This was fun. Thanks,
Yes.
Katrina.
Thank you all. See you next time.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Hi.
Hi. So I see that it's still recording. So did it automatically